Hello, Aries. If you're hearing these words right now, it's not by accident. The time has come for a soul like yours to finally receive what the universe has been keeping safe for so long. A gift never meant for anyone else, but you, not because you're the strongest, not because you're the best, but because you're real. You once burned so brightly without needing anyone to notice. You stayed strong. Even in complete silence, you kept your heart kind, even when there was nothing left to hold on to. And because of that, a sacred door is opening just for you, not for you to step in with expectation, but to return to yourself and to understand why this moment matters so deeply. You'll have to come with me to a place only souls who have burned completely can walk through. Not everyone born under a blazing sky carries a mission like yours, Aries. You weren't made to be agreeable or shaped to fit inside someone else's mold. You were made to begin, to burn, to lead. You weren't blessed because you're perfect, you were chosen, because you're real, real enough to never hide your pain, real enough to still choose love, even when love had already broken you once. The world often worships light, but fears the kind it cannot control. And you, Aries, you are that kind of flame. No one taught you how to rise, but you rose. No one waited for you to shine, but you shined. Even from the dark corners they left you in. The blessing that's coming to you now is not the result of prayers. It's the universe's quiet response to a soul that burned completely in silence. This gift was never meant for those who seek. It's meant for the ones who once gave up and still chose to keep going. You never begged to be loved. You chose to love even without being loved back. You never asked to be seen. You chose to shine even when no one turned around to look. Aries, this world was never made easy for souls like yours. You weren't born to be instantly understood. You were born to be the first one to walk through the dark while everyone else was still afraid to take a step. And the scars you carry, they're not failures. They're proof of a courage you never even tried to name. The sacred gift that's waiting for you now didn't come from working harder or being good enough. It comes from a place far away, a place where the universe once watched you cry quietly, but still kept your heart open. Only those who have been torn at the soul and still chose kindness carry the frequency to open this door. You're not the favored, you're the chosen, because in a world where everyone is trying to be seen, you lived as if your presence was already a gift, and maybe no one clapped. No one gave you awards. No one wrote your name into shining history books. The universe remembers. It remembers every time you forgave in silence, every time you picked yourself up from the ashes of your own heartbreak, every breath you took, just to keep the fire in your chest from going out. And that is why this gift belongs to you. A reward that cannot be taken because it was never given. It only appears when you're finally ready to live without needing it. Aries, what's coming next is not a miracle because you fought so hard. It's a miracle because you stopped just in time to become yourself. You're no longer pushing, no longer chasing, no longer asking for permission to simply be real. You weren't born to beg. You were born to blaze, to open roads, to be the first flame that lights the way for an entire generation. And if you're hearing this now and something inside your chest softens, if a quiet space just opened in your heart, then maybe this isn't just a voice in a video. Maybe it's a message from a place your soul already knows. You were never meant to beg. You were meant to blaze. You don't need to prove you're worthy. You only need to give yourself permission to receive, because what's coming to you has never been touched by anyone else. A gift made only for the one who once lost everything, but never lost their goodness. If your heart is nodding quietly, write it down as a soul promise. I, Aries, am ready to receive what's already mine. Not because you've done enough, but because you've always been enough, you just forgot. Let that message float out like a quiet light from you to the stars, from this fire to the gift already waiting on the other side. And just like every true miracle, it doesn't show up. When you try to force it, it appears. The moment you stop trying to claim it, maybe, before you can receive, the only thing left for you to do is to pause and finally hear a truth you've been trying to outrun. This gift was always waiting, but it only comes when you stop needing to fight for it. Not every victory needs a stage, and not every warrior needs to be named. You've lived like that, Aries. No medals, no applause, no one standing behind you cheering, just you, and your own heart, just you. And those moments when life's fire and storm came straight at you, and still you chose to rise. Still, you chose to believe in kindness. How many times have you protected others until there was nothing left in you? How many times did you reach out to someone, knowing full well no arms would reach back? And yet, you did, not because it was easy, but because kindness was the only language your soul knew how to speak. You forgave without asking for an apology. You listened, without needing to be understood. You stayed quietly, like a flame hiding behind stone walls. Others walked away, and you stayed behind, piecing your own heart back together without a sound. And if someone asked you why, maybe you wouldn't answer, not because you don't know, but because you've grown too familiar with carrying everything in silence. But here's the thing, the universe doesn't need you to speak, to understand how far you've come and how much you've lost, just to keep your soul soft. No one saw you that night, when you couldn't breathe, but still smiled. No one heard the way your chest cracked open as everything around you collapsed, and you were still the one holding others up. But the universe did. It saw it all, clearly. It saw you walk through layers of emotion most people are too afraid to touch. It saw you stay inside the pain that others only skimmed. It saw you hold yourself when no one else remained. And then you realized no one can make you feel whole if you don't first give yourself permission to receive. We talk so much about giving, about selflessness, but no one teaches you how to receive without guilt. You once believed you were strong because you didn't need anyone, but real strength is being brave enough to say, I need to be held too. I need someone to hear me. I need a place to rest and feel safe, and that place was never out there. It's always been. You are your own shelter, and that's when the gift comes. Not when you prove something, not when you've done everything right, but when you sit down quietly and finally accept that you are enough. No more pushing, no more pretending, no more acting like you're okay when you're really not. Healing doesn't come from being seen by others. It begins when you start seeing yourself not through someone else's eyes, but your own. No one has the right to call you a warrior unless they've seen how many nights you fought your own shadows, alone. But you know who you are, and that is more than enough. If you've ever lived that way, quietly surviving storms no one knew about, I invite you to share. When did you realize you were the safest place to return to? It's not just a question, it's a key. And you're the only one who can turn it to unlock the door where your gift is already waiting behind. And then, when you stop waiting for someone to come save you, when you let go of the idea that love has to arrive in a certain form, when you stop hoping someone will finally turn around and notice the pain you've hidden so well, something begins to appear softly, without sound, without spectacle, like cool water pouring over a wound that never healed properly, like golden light slipping quietly through the crack in your window at the end of a long day, like something you never quite named, but your soul always knew was coming. And when it arrives, you won't have to reach for it because it will stay, not because you've learned to suffer well, but because you've finally learned to love yourself in silence, in one moment, a moment that feels too ordinary to matter when you're no longer trying to search or strive or chase. That's when the sacred steps in, like a quiet apology from the universe for making you wait so long. And from that deep, holy surrender, everything begins to move again. Money, opportunities, and doors you never imagined begin to unlock themselves in ways you could never have planned for. Silence is the only thing left after you've tried everything. Silence when you work twice as hard as everyone else and still feel like you're not enough. Silence when you give so much and still feel unworthy of receiving. And silence, even when there's a very real question burning in your heart. Why does everything seem to come, only to disappear again? Aries, you are not lazy, you're not lacking skills, you're not short on willpower. You've carried more than most could see, worked from dawn to dusk, kept the pressure hidden behind a smile, just enough to keep the world from asking questions. You've lived like that, pushing so hard, you forgot why you were even trying in the first place. But then one day, you stopped. Not because you gave up, but because your soul finally understood. You don't have to trade your peace to feel whole. When you stop doing everything just to be loved, when you stop overworking just to feel worthy and start living as if you already are, something strange begins to happen. Money starts to flow. Opportunities begin to knock. Things you thought you lost forever come back unexpectedly, but in forms you never saw coming. A payment out of nowhere, job that seemed closed off. A person who once made you cry returns, not to reopen the past, but to return something your soul once lost. What if money was love in disguise, waiting for you to stop pushing it away? That question echoes in a deeper layer you may have never fully tuned into. If money is just another form of love, how have you been treating that love? How many times have you rejected your blessings because you believed you didn't deserve them yet? How many times have you turned down a compliment, a helping hand, just because you're so used to being the giver, not the receiver? But here's the truth. When you refuse to receive, you also block the flow that could nourish everyone around you. You think you're being humble, but in reality, you're slowly drying out the river within you. Money isn't just material, it's energy. It's the universe saying, I see you, I recognize you, I want you to keep shining. If you treat money like an enemy, it will run from you. But if you welcome it like an old friend, someone you misunderstood, someone you pushed away, it will return, and it will bring with it things you never thought you'd be able to hold again. Money doesn't come from doing more. It comes when you finally believe. You don't have to shrink to feel worthy. You don't have to accept jobs that drain your soul just to survive. You don't have to dim your light to make others comfortable. You don't have to give away your sacred energy to people who can't even see it, because when you believe you're worthy, you stop giving from lack. You start living from fullness, and then something magical happens. The doors that once slammed shut begin to open. The people who once overlooked you start showing up. The opportunities that once slipped away return. But this time, they no longer cost you yourself, because you stopped chasing. You started standing. You no longer need to prove anything. You just need to show up as you are, and that is enough. If you've ever turned down a beautiful gift because you didn't think you deserved it, share it. Just one moment, one time you said no, when your heart wanted to say yes. Don't be afraid, because sometimes sharing is the first step to letting the flow come back. Every gift from the universe is a reflection of the frequency you carry. And the more you live in truth, the more you trust your worth, the more the universe finds its way back to you. But the real gift isn't just the money. It's not just the perfectly timed offer. It's something deeper, something you once gave your whole heart to protect, a love that seemed so pure, yet made you slowly disappear in your own life. How do you talk about love without mentioning the wound? How do you describe tenderness when your heart has cracked so many times? You've forgotten what it felt like to shine. Aries, you love with your entire soul. When you choose someone, you love like there's no tomorrow, no hesitation, no backup plan, no halfway in. You love like a warrior with all your strength, all your heart, and sometimes all your broken pieces. Love to you isn't just a feeling, it's life itself. You don't love to be loved back. You love because it's the only way you know how to fully exist in this world. You've held others close, even while you were falling apart. You've stayed in connections where you disappeared little by little. You didn't stay because you didn't know how to leave. You stayed because you couldn't bear to let them face their darkness alone. You once stayed to carry their darkness, but now you choose to carry your light. Does that line pause something inside you? Because you know that feeling. You've held everything, healing, forgiving, enduring, holding on. But deep down, you just wanted someone to ask you one simple question. Are you okay? Do you need a hug? You never asked for much. Just a place to lean on. Just an eye that truly sees you. But when it never came, you held yourself, like you've done 100 times before. You lived that way, a warrior who knew how to love, but didn't know when to stop, once love began to empty you out. And then, one day, you realized something you were once too scared to believe. True love doesn't ask you to shrink yourself just to stay. True love doesn't require you to sacrifice your brightest light just to keep someone close. You've walked into connections where you gave so much, you no longer recognized yourself. You've silenced your inner voice just to keep the peace, denied your own needs because you were afraid to hurt someone else, said I'm fine, when you were silently falling apart. But love is not erasing yourself. It's not becoming more tolerable just so you don't get left behind. It's not choosing pain and calling it resilience. Real love is where you are free to be your whole self, honest, imperfect, alive, without apologizing for it. Maybe you were once in a relationship where you had to choose between truth and keeping that relationship alive. You chose to close your eyes. You chose silence. You chose to stay, not because you were weak, but because you loved too deeply. But now you're starting to remember what your heart has always known. Not everyone who needs you deserves to have you, and sometimes walking away at the right moment is the most sacred act of love. You no longer need to be responsible for healing others. You no longer need to be chosen. You're beginning to choose yourself. Maybe for the first time in years, you stand up from the ruins and say, I won't save anyone else if it means I have to hurt myself. I won't stay if it costs me my soul. Aries, you're not selfish for choosing yourself. You're not cold for closing a chapter that no longer uplifts you. You're simply relearning how to love in a way that doesn't break you. If you've ever loved so hard, you forgot who you were. Tell us a time you chose to walk away, not because you stopped loving, but because you finally started loving yourself. Emotional maturity in love isn't about how long you held on to someone. It's about no longer needing to hurt yourself to hold on to love. And then, when you finally stop, when you release the grip, something beautiful starts to bloom. From the very emptiness you used to fear most, no more battles in your heart, no more sleepless nights asking, am I enough? Do I deserve to be loved? A strange feeling begins to return, one that's new, soft, and quiet, and after everything, there's something even more powerful than love. It's the peace that doesn't come from anyone else but you. There's a fragile moment when the noise in your head finally stops. Your heart no longer clenches around unsaid words, and other people's eyes no longer define who you are. It's not a victory. It's not even something grand. It's just a quiet minute. A minute where you no longer have to do anything to be loved, to be kept, to be enough. You're just breathing, you're just here, and somehow that's enough. Aries, you've lived like you were racing something invisible, running to save a relationship, running to not be left behind, running to prove you deserve a place in this world. And you ran so fast that sometimes you forgot what you were even running for. You once believed that peace was a reward, the final stop after a long, exhausting journey. But here's what you may not have realized. Peace isn't a reward. Peace is the right to breathe without asking for permission, without needing to be understood, without needing to be forgiven, without needing anyone to fix it. Just you, sitting with yourself maybe for the first time in years. Peace is when your soul sits down and no longer fears being unseen. That line, does it awaken something ancient inside you? Because once you were the one who went unseen. You spoke too much to fill the silence, did too much to earn your place, tried too hard to not be forgotten. You believed that if you stopped, everything would disappear. If you didn't keep pushing, you'd lose your worth. If you didn't speak, people would forget you were even there. But then, you realized something. No matter how hard you tried, the world wasn't going to change, but you would. And that changes everything. When you stop trying to be understood, you start to understand yourself. When you stop running, you start seeing. And when you begin to listen, not to the world, but to your own voice, you touch the very thing you've been searching for all along, your return. There's a Buddhist insight that says, silence isn't the absence of noise. It's what happens when you stop running from yourself. And that is the miracle. No one else needs to agree. Circumstances don't need to be easy. You just stop resisting your own being. You accept the sadness as something natural. You accept the wounds as proof you can still feel, and you accept this truth. You don't have to be strong all the time to be worthy of peace, because peace isn't when everything outside is calm. Peace is when you can sit in the storm and still not be moved inside. And if you ask me, does the world change? Maybe not, but you will. And from that space, the things you once thought were miracles begin to find you without you even calling them in. So if you're still running, still holding your breath, still haven't given yourself permission to sit down and say, I'm here, and I don't need to earn anything more to be enough, then start with just one breath, just one. One quiet minute, not to accomplish anything, but simply to be here, fully, gently, honestly. And if there's ever been a time in your life, even just for a few seconds, when you felt that kind of real peace, would you share it with us? Because maybe your one quiet memory might open the door to peace for someone else. And here's the thing no one tells you about peace. It doesn't come when you chase it. It arrives when you stop resisting, when you stop proving, stop forcing, stop trying to be picked, stop becoming what others expect. And then, what you thought you had to travel miles to find is right there, quietly waiting inside your chest. And when that moment comes, when you no longer need to be validated, when you're no longer afraid of being misunderstood, when you can sit with yourself, that's when the sacred finally arrives. Not early, not late, but exactly when your soul has grown quiet enough to remember you were never forgotten. The gift is already near, and it won't look like glory. It will feel like a warm whisper that says, you were always worthy, and now it's time to receive. Not everyone who lives with a good heart receives grace early. Not everyone who's kind gets kindness back right away, and not everyone who stays strong sees the results instantly. But there's one truth that never changes in the order of the universe. Every action that comes from a sincere heart is remembered, not through praise, not through spotlight, but through the quiet gifts that arrive when you least expect them, right when you stop waiting. Blessings don't come to those who seem the most worthy. They come to the ones who keep choosing love, keep choosing light, keep choosing faith even when no one's watching. And you, Aries, are one of those souls. You've been misunderstood. You've been judged. You've once believed you had to shrink, soften, or fix yourself just to be loved. You've changed to hold on to someone, stepped back so others could move forward, stayed quiet, because no one had the patience to hear your full sentence. But now that the noise has faded, now that you no longer need to argue to be understood, now that you're sitting in the vastness of your own being and breathing, as if you've finally landed in a life where you don't need to try so hard anymore, that's when the gift appears. It doesn't knock. It doesn't make a sound. It simply shows up, as if it had always been there, just waiting for you to nod, not to grab it, not to earn it, but to admit deep in your soul, I don't need to become the light, I already am. This gift isn't something to achieve, it's confirmation that you were never forgotten, that the wounds you've carried for years were never meaningless, that your quiet kindness was never missed. You don't need to chase anymore, don't need to force anything, don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You only need to open your heart and receive. And what you'll receive won't just be money or love or a brand new chance. What you'll truly receive is a complete return to yourself. It's the peace you once thought only belonged to those luckier than you. It's the support that now rises from within, not from anyone needing to hold on to you. It's the knowing that says, I don't have to wait for the miracle. I am the miracle the universe has been waiting to awaken. And if your heart feels soft right now, if something deep inside you is stirring even slightly, don't brush it away. Don't let the noise out there drown out the message your soul is receiving. Stay still just a little longer, place your hand over your chest and quietly whisper, I've come home. Thank you, Aries, for staying until the end, for being present, raw, real, and still kind. May this message reach the softest place in your soul, and may you never again doubt that you are seen, heard, and cherished by the universe. With peace, with respect, with deep knowing, I honor your light.